Hello and welcome to Blytheway Business News. Today I'm joined by Tony Manini, who's the Executive Chairman of Asiamet. Asiamet listed on the London Stock Exchange on the AIM market with a ticker of ARS, market capitalization of 32 million. The company has an interesting portfolio of assets in copper and copper gold in Kalimantan. But before we get on to what the assets hold in terms of their potential, some interesting news recently, which I've got to ask you about, Tony. Now, you recently terminated a potential transaction with a company who is your biggest shareholder, a Eternum Group. Anyone at the flick of a switch on their Google and look at Eternum and see that they are oil traders out of Singapore. I believe there's a French bank who even recently is accusing them of fraud and all kinds of shenanigans. Anyway, for whatever reason, you terminated the proposed transaction with them. And then they've come out recently, said they want a special general meeting to kick you and colleagues off the board. Now, what are these people up to, Tony?
Well, I think, Tim, you sort of summarised it in one sentence, to be quite honest. We have some valuable assets. We have a group of people who want those assets. The deal was terminated because they, of a material breach. That material breach was that they didn't pay the first tranche of $2.5 million, which was essentially a down payment on the transaction. We gave them extended time to do that. They still didn't pay the money. So, and then, it turns up that they call a special general meeting. So pretty obvious they want the assets. They recognise the value that's in the company, but they don't want to pay for it. So they're looking at alternative means to try and get hold of it.
Okay, well, sorry to have to start with that, but I think we have to clear it up for investors because it's been on the stock exchange screens. Good to hear your take on it. So let's look to the future. Let's look to the future for Asiamet. You've got those two assets, the KSK asset in central Kalimantan, and then the Buton project. Let's first of all look at KSK first of all. What's the strategy? What's the plan now for KSK?
Yeah, look, Tim, we've always had a very clear strategy for the company and KSK in particular. So KSK, as people would know, the feasibility study is completed. We've actually done quite a lot of work on the value engineering over the past 9 months. You'll hear more about that very soon. All the reports are being pulled together. There's some additional work to be done on that as we move to start the project financing discussions and finalise the last piece of the permitting to get the Pinch and Paco in place. So the strategy is and has always been for us to push ahead and get this project into development. Simultaneous with that, as I said, we'll be discussing financing packages. And we've also, given the price environment that I just mentioned to you before, we've also had, some considerable interest from investors, and it's a wide range of different investors. And look, we'll look to engage those simultaneously. But for us, the focus is just push ahead with the project and get the development path underway.
Okay, I mean, you're certainly in the right metals with copper and copper gold. You've mentioned copper, Tony. What's your take on copper? Is it all about EVs? What's your take on the copper market?
Yeah, Tim, look, talking about Asiamet today, I mean, and most people will know if they've heard me talk before, this is part of a very deliberate strategy which we started out 5 years ago, put together some copper assets, really getting ready for the environment that we have today. So, I think, given what we're seeing globally, we've still got, most people forget that half the world is still industrialising, urbanising in the Asian region, and that's the main driver of copper growth. And that's been happening for, the last 20 years. Then you've got the overlay of the stimulus packages, which a lot of that money is aimed at infrastructure, and that infrastructure requires a lot of copper. Overlay on top of that, the drive to utilise that stimulus in the EV renewables energy sector, which is very copper intensive. So you've got a perfect storm, really. And then you've got restrictions on the other side because of COVID restrictions. You've got constrained supply in some of the bigger places like Chile and Peru. So you've sort of got the perfect storm, really. You've got a multiplier effect on the supply side, on the demand side, sorry, and restrictions on the supply side. So we're very, very bullish copper. We have been for a long time, and we think this is just the start.
Okay, let's look at the second project onto Buton. What's the immediate and longer term planning for Buton?
Yeah, so Buton, we've as you know, we've had Buton on the back burner for a number of years while we've focused on KSK. We do need to daylight Buton. I think it's sort of been a forgotten asset. So we'll get on. We've got people on the ground now working on the community relations side, getting things in good shape to move back on there to do some additional work in due course. What we'd like to do there is to do some extra drilling and then, concentrate on some of the metallurgical test work. And we think once we start to do that work, those results get out into the public domain, that will attract a level of interest in the project that we haven't seen for some period of time while the market's been quiet. And ultimately, it's a big project. We need a partner for that project. So the idea would be to look for a JV partner to come in to essentially fund, do the work, the full feasibility study, and take that project through to the construction phase. And we retain, an interest in that circa sort of 20 to 40%. That would be the intention.
Okay. So looking to the next few months, Tony, news flow, what should investors, what should potential investors be looking out for in the coming months by way of key bits of news from Asiamet?
Yeah, so as I just alluded to, Tim, the value engineering piece has been, as I said, there's been quite a lot of work done over the last 9 months. There hasn't been much in the way of news about that, so that will be pulled together, and we'll get that out shortly. And then as we push ahead with the project development work, there's obviously lots of important milestones along the way there, permitting, financing, technical initiatives, etc. So all of that will continue, and there'll be a news flow coming from that. Obviously, some pretty important milestones to be met. Likewise for Buton, once we start to ramp up activities, we should have a consistent flow out of Buton. That may take a little while to get underway and some momentum, but it will probably second half of this year that will start to pick up. So those are the key things on the project. Then, as I said, we'll have a range of discussions running around potential investors either into the project or into the company. So there'll be a range of technical financial and commercial things which evolve over the course of the year as we push KSK in towards development. And we should have a strong news flow off the back of that against a pretty strong backdrop in copper, Tim. One of the things I might just mention is that we've also we've said pretty clearly in the public domain that we'll do whatever is sort of in the best interests of shareholders. So if there's inbound interest in the company or in the projects that make sense from a value perspective, we would entertain those as well. But our focus will be on the project, and then the corporate activity will handle simultaneously and separately.
Tony, you're sounding very confident. You've clearly got some exciting projects and some great potential. And we just covered in a brief time a lot of ground. If there was one thing you would like viewers to take away from this interview, what would it be?
I think the most critical thing to recognise for any investors that are interested in copper, Tim, is that Asiamet is quite rare in that we are actually 5 years into a strategy which was built around the copper market. So the copper market is strong. Investor sentiment is strong for the reasons that we've touched on. And we have one of the few, if not the only, development-ready copper project in the Asian region. And Asian region is the key growth markets for copper. So, we have actually, a pretty unique opportunity in that we have that development project almost ready to go, and then a big growth project in Buton sitting behind it in the Asian region. So it is quite a unique situation.
So an exciting metal in Asia, close to the markets that need copper, right place, right time.
Spot on.
That was Tony Manini, Executive Chairman of Asiamet, telling us about his projects in Asia for copper gold, but very, very much about the copper. That's all from Blytheway Business News. Thanks for watching.